if you're investing.
Investors will.
The podcast for all things real estate investing.
So, welcome back to another episode of Investor One-on-One, the podcast where we connect with the nation's top real estate investors. Today, we got a guest who didn't just stumble into real estate, he engineered his way into it. After attending a 3-day conference, he saw the massive potential for building wealth and financial freedom through real estate investing. He then took a strategic, business-minded approach, mastering the art of short sales and developing systems that help investors consistently turn huge profits, which we will be telling us more about today. Besides doing deals, he's also teaching others how to do them the right way. Through coaching, online courses, and live events, he's showing investors how to buy, renovate, and sell houses for massive returns without the stress and outdated strategies. Joining us today is a true expert in the world of short sales and high-profit real estate investing. Welcome, David Randolph.
Hello, really glad to be here, Aura. This is going to be fun. I love talking about real estate.
Thank you, David. It's our pleasure having you today and learning more about you. So let's just start with your story and background. As I said, you started out as an engineer. How did you get into the world of real estate and why?
Well, it was kind of interesting. As an engineer, I was working in the corporate world, and I'm sure a lot of your viewers are stuck in that corporate world still today, trying to get out, right? Well, I didn't know there was a way out, so I was still stuck, and I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was actually doing pretty good. I had got patents for my company and other things, and I came in for my result review with the head of personnel, that time of year when you're supposed to get your raise, and we went over everything in the document, and everything was great, and I'm at the end waiting for my big fat juicy raise, right? And they told me your raise is $0. And I go, what do you mean by $0? What does that mean? It's $0. Well, you don't get a raise. And I'm like, well, why don't I get a raise? You just named all these things I did. Well, it's because you're already making as much as a president of our small company does. You're making as much as a president already. And I'm like, well, give him a raise. Give him a raise. So, and that's when I said, man, I've been climbing up the wrong wall. The corporate ladder, I got to the top and there's nothing there. There is nothing there. And so that's when I got into real estate. Like you said, I went to a 3-day conference, fell in love with real estate. And then from there, just found so much success in real estate, that I started rehabbing houses. Okay. So my way of starting was if I knew how to rehab, then I could do rentals and wholesaling. So I learned rehab first. And so basically, my little story is that I rehab about 5 to 10 houses a year. But one of my claims to fame, is that my houses that I put on the MLS, that I've renovated, put on the MLS, 265,000 and less here in St. Louis, Missouri, they've all sold in 7 days or less, Atlas price or higher for now 15 years. Okay, so to drop that gorgeous, and basically I have an unfair advantage though in doing that is basically how am I buying those houses, right? How you buy it is always the trick. That's why leads are so important. You make your money when you buy, and so getting the right lead is where you make your profit, not when you sell it. Anyway, the point is that I'm making, now this is me personally, and I'm trying to stay FTC compliant, but for me personally, I make $50,000 to $150,000 gross profit. Now, gross profit means that I've got things like paper and ink pens and computers and stuff like that. I'm just talking about, the numbers on the public records that bought this and sold for that. But I'm making, 50 to 150,000 gross profit on each house. So that's why they sell so quickly. So then from there, basically, I moved into another business model. I became what's called a hard money lender. Okay, so I've got over $3.5 million in cash in my IRAs. Okay, but I'm not retired, so I don't use it. So I lend it out. So my heart is to help new rehabbers get started. So I'll give them the money to buy it, the money to fix it, the money for the points, and the money for the monthly interest payments. They need $0. Okay, they pay it all back on the HUD statement. When they sell the house or if they cash me out as a landlord with a local bank. And then from there, about 5 years ago, people that know me said, David, you need to teach other people how to do short sales. So I've been teaching people, for 5 years how to do short sales with it all across the country. And I love doing that. I'm probably going to even cut my rehabs down this year to five or less this year because I love teaching people. We just had a student in Pennsylvania, who bought a house, very first short sale. This is going to give you an idea what we're about to talk about here, over the rest of this interview. He bought his very first short sale for $57,000. Okay, he put $10,000 of dumpsters in it, like two to three dumpsters. He just cleaned it out. Okay, and then he put it on the MLS, put it up for sale. And so he had 67 in it, put it up for sale on the MLS just a couple weeks ago. He went under contract for $225,000 cash, no appraisal and no inspections. His high offer was 245, but he was smart and took the cash offer. So that's what we're going to talk about here is short sales and how do you do short sales in today's market and why the banks are literally dumping houses. I mean, think about it. That the banks are desperate and they're dumping houses right now, and nobody else but you, me, and your listeners know about this, okay? And the guy in Pennsylvania, obviously. But that's kind of my overview of what I've done in real estate for the past 15 years, and I'd love to answer any questions about short sales or anything you got about real estate.
That's amazing, David, and I'm excited for this conversation as well. Let's start a little bit about short sale operations for our new investors. We can explain that a little bit and everything that goes behind it.
Yeah, sure. Let's look at some simple definitions. If I ask 10 real estate investors, what is a short sale? How do you define a short sale? Almost all of them would say this one simple sentence. It's when you owe more than what the house is worth. So in other words, the mortgage on the house, the homeowner, they owe more on that mortgage than they could sell the house for. That's the generic definition that 10 out of 10 investors would say that's the definition. Okay, now I will tell you that nah, it's dead wrong. It's not the definition. Here's my definition. My definition is you miss one house payment. Okay, that's the definition, and here's why. I can't do a short sale, and you can't do a short sale, and your listeners can't do a short sale unless the seller, the homeowner, the borrower has missed one payment. You can't do a short sale. They have to miss a payment. So for me, it is my definition. I don't care about being underwater, and here's why. Let me tell you why. Now, you said engineer. That also means I'm a data junkie nerd, okay? So let me back up what I just said, okay? So there's a study done by Black Knight. That's a data mortgage statistical company. They're bought out by another company called ICE recently. And so what happened is they did a 30-year study of all the foreclosures in America of the past 30 years. They took all of those homeowners, took all the ones that had 40% equity in their house, 40%. Those people could have snapped their fingers and sold that house instantly, right? But instead, one third, 30% of those people went to foreclosure anyway. Okay, you weren't there, or I wasn't there, and other people weren't there to help them out. That's your short sale. That's the person that you can help out. That's the one that needs your assistance, that can get them out of the foreclosure situation, which is a very bad deal, for them. So short sales are not what you might say underwater. That's a word you hear a lot, underwater, meaning that they owe more than what it's worth. That's what that means, but that's not necessarily what a short sale is, okay, and stuff. And so that's my generic definition of a short sale is that, I'm going to basically come in. Well, let me give another caveat here. Everything I'm talking about, so this is going to get some real estate agents upset, okay? These short sales are not on the MLS. These short sales are not with a real estate agent. These are short sales that you find through your own lead source, okay? That you work with the homeowner. They authorize you to negotiate directly with a bank. So we don't buy them from real estate agents on the MLS. No, absolutely not. So I want to give that caveat. The other caveat or the other disclosure is I teach, and I've done for 15 years, and many people across the country I teach, we are the buyer and the negotiator, okay? I'm the only one that cares that I make $150,000 profit on that house. Not a flat fee company that does short sales, not a real estate agent doing it for 6% commission that thinks he knows what he's doing. But no, you're the buyer, the entrepreneur. You're the one that's going to be the buyer on the house, and you're negotiating directly with a bank. So everything I talk about from here on out is on that basis with it. So that's the generic definition of a short sale.
You've been doing this for 15 years, as you said. What made you land on short sales as your primary strategy when so many investors were running away from it at the time?
Well, that was kind of an interesting perspective. That was 2008 and 9. And so it was a little hard to run away from it. It was a tidal wave, it was everywhere. And so my wife and I looked at it and said, hey, look, we're brand new into real estate. We haven't done any real estate at all. How are we going to buy houses? What's going to be our method? We learned to rehab. We had some tools. We paid for education. Now, how are we going to find the houses? Well, when you got, people losing their homes left and right, and the banks really giving these families the shaft, we could step in, stop that foreclosure, get families more time in the house, okay, prevent the foreclosure on their record, and get the bank to pay them some money, at the end, to move anyway. And so it was just a logical thing to help families out. We had a heart to help families out. Yes, we intended to make money. Yes, we ended up making lots of money, okay, but it was a heart to help that family out back in 2008 and 9 with it because it was a tidal wave back then. And that's pretty much the reason we got into that was to help families.
And let's say when you do get a short sale, how do you determine what it's worth? How do you estimate the value?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved. So, in a short sale, you have different loan types. Okay, so for example, one homeowner here on this street might have an FHA loan. Another homeowner, on another street down the road has a Fannie Mae loan, right? So there's about 7 or 8 types of loans. Okay, so when you start to work on a short sale, you need to look at what is that type of loan, okay? Because then you know which ones you want to go after and which ones you want to pursue. Here's a good example. I'll give you a secret number. Now, hang on, I need to ask something. You don't have we're not live. This isn't going to be released live, is it?
No.
Okay, good. Because if it were, I'd want you to duck because, those drones, I'm about to reveal something and we're going to get struck by, the drone is going to zap us, but just don't be in your chair when you release this. Okay, so I'm going to give something
Sure.
away here. So if the homeowner has what's called an FHA loan, that's how they bought the house. So that becomes an FHA short sale. I know that on that short sale, the bank will take 88% of the appraised value. So they do an appraisal, they say this is what the house is worth. Don't offer that. They will take 88, they'll take 88%. Duck, quick, duck, don't the government drones are gonna zap us here, but that's just, and so I know these numbers for, all the, different loan types and stuff like that. So when you do a short sale, you really want to look at the borrower, the owner of the house and find out what kind of loan they have. And then that can take you down many paths, from there, whether you can make a lot or a little on that house.
Let's say you acquire one of these properties and you said before, profits on these from 50 to 150,000. What's your exit strategy usually? Is it flipping it, wholesaling it, holding these properties?
Well, I tell you, I like this little green stuff called money, and I believe that a rehabber brings the most value to society and the neighborhood, and so you're going to make the most profit if you have the skills to rehab. So for me, that is the majority of what I do. I only wholesale off a couple houses a year, okay? And that's only because I won't hold, a bunch of houses empty, like they did back in 2006 and 7. If I'm rehabbing 2 houses and the bank, gives me an approval for the third house, I will then wholesale that house off. Now, as far as, what your choices are, I always like to give this example here of one of these houses that I bought for $29,600. Okay. When you buy a house for $29,600, you have a lot of choices. Okay. The rent on that house was about $2,500 a month. Okay. It was a 1,500 square foot, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, full basement house, but I bought it for 29.6. So you have a lot of choices. You could have either put about $10,000 in that and then rented it, or you could have just wholesaled it for $150,000. You buy it for $29,600. The bank forced me to pay that. I have a lot of choices, and one of the last ones there is, I could have wholesaled for say 150 grand, but instead I put about 80,000 into it, so I had like 110, 120 or whatever in it. Sold it for 275. Okay, 275 on the MLS. So in a short sale, you have so many choices with your exit strategy. If you're a landlord, then you can do that. If you just only want a wholesale, you can certainly do that. So that's the power, I think, of the that tool in your tool belt called short sale, is that your profit is so large, you have a lot of exit strategies.
Amazing. And you said you primarily invest in Missouri, but where do you usually find homeowners in pre-foreclosure or foreclosure stages?
There's short sales all across all across the United States. The banks are desperate. The short sale process is federal, so it doesn't matter what state you live in. The actual negotiation paperwork system that you do with the bank is identical all across the United States. My county alone, we've got 40 foreclosures a month, and I just want one short sale is all I want, from it. Short sale has been somebody completely different at the bank. This is not like REO. This is not like foreclosure courthouse steps, and it goes back to the bank, and there's an REO manager, asset manager. No, there is no asset manager on a short sale because the bank doesn't own the house yet. So every time, this is what I love about short sales, anybody can do them. That's how my guy in Pennsylvania bought it for 57,000 and is under contract for 225, is because it's a process, a series of steps that you do with the bank, and it's not important who is on the other end of the line at the bank side. With it. So it's not about a relationship with the bank. It's about authorization from the seller to let you talk to the bank and then do what I do, in the process I developed over the past 15 years.
So in your opinion, what other tools or resources are needed to be successful in this niche of investing?
Well, you have to have stamps and envelopes, okay, is one way to do it, okay. There's also ways to do it with, SEO. There's bandit signs. Look, the key here is, the only tool that you need is marketing money, okay. You don't need any, I don't want to use the word operating income because you need computers, papers, and a car and a cell phone and blah, 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 blah. But I'm just saying that you just need a lead, okay, who has missed a house payment. That's all you need, okay? And so you've got somebody that is distressed. There are many other factors in why they're distressed. Well, one of them is, a person that has a foreclosure date because they've missed that payment. You can't keep missing payments forever and ever, and so they end up with a foreclosure date, and so then that person is in trouble. And so the sooner you reach them, the better, okay? Because now they get to know, like, and trust you. So it's all about marketing.
For sure. And this might have got cut off earlier, but how do you find these homeowners who are missing their payments?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, there are, these homeowners that are not making their house payment are also, probably not making their car payment. They're not making other payments. They're got low credit scores, a lot of other distress factors. And so they're going to reach out, okay, to you. So you can try and reach them through bandit signs. You can try and reach them through direct mail. You can try to reach them through SEO. You can try to reach them through Facebook ads. The point is get somebody who reaches out that comes to you, okay? Like to make it real super simple, if you mail them a letter and your phone number is on it and they call you, then that's what it is, okay? If you do a Facebook ad and they fill out a page, okay, give you the name and phone number, then they reached out to you, right? And so that's basically what you're doing. Now that series of they missed a payment, they've gone for months and months, and then some people years, and then they get down to the process of where they end up with a foreclosure date. That's where they become the most motivated, right? Because in Missouri, it's 21 days. They post that date, the house is gone into the bank 21 days later. So they're like the most motivated. But if you've talked to them before that, build up a know, like, and trust. When that happens, they're like, oh yeah, hey, there's David again. He reached out to me before, back when I was distressed, right? Now I have a foreclosure date. Okay, now I better listen to David. Right. And so now they call me back, and then I can stop that foreclosure date. I can help them stop that date, with it, and then do a short sale if that's what they want.
I know you told us a little bit about one of your students and a very successful, inspiring story. Can you share another one of your favorite student success stories and go like play by play how it all went through from the beginning to the end?
Well, it would take about 3 hours to go beginning to end, but let me just jump to the end of how it actually ended up working out. We had one that was, we'll pick a different one now. Okay, we'll pick a Fannie Mae loan. Okay, and so what happened on the Fannie Mae loan was that they had come back at $228,000, for the house that they wanted. And so my student immediately wanted to buy that house because he felt that he could just put $15,000 worth of paint in that house, okay, paint it inside, paint it outside, and then sell it for about, 300, $20,000, okay. So he was very happy at 228. And I said, no, wait a minute, hold on, no, this is a short sale. These are steps and processes and methods that I've developed over 15 years. We do not accept what the bank asks for, okay? Because remember, we know some of these secret percentages, right? And so we do what's called a dispute, okay? That's a mechanism the bank has in place that's allowed that you can do to dispute the value. And so I made him do the dispute process, which turned up some things in the dispute where in the end, okay, in the end, he basically bought the house for $164,000. Okay. So we came from 228 to 164. Okay. He put 15 in it. So what was that? 179, 189, something like that. And he did actually in real life close and sell on it for $305,000. And all he did was paint the house inside and paint the house outside. And so that was, that's people all across the United States are doing this, okay? People don't understand that the banks are desperate, completely desperate to get these off their books. And let me explain why that is, okay? Look, just forget short sales. You send out motivated seller leads to people all across the country, many different types of motivations, right? Well, what is the whole concept behind that is the homeowner has some other reason for selling the house at a low price. Why doesn't the seller just fix the house up themselves and sell it, right? They don't. They don't have the capability. Okay, they're a motivated seller. Well, banks are motivated sellers. Okay, and here's what their motivation is. If they have too many non-performing notes, too many homeowners not making their payment, then the FDIC shuts them down. Okay, they have too many non-performing notes, and so they get their banking license taken away. All their assets go to another bank. They lose all their toys in the sandbox. They get kicked out, right? So they don't want too many of these. So they'll take like almost, I don't want to say anything, okay, but here's why. Look, you heard of this thing called fiat currency, okay? It's called the American banking system, and here's how it kind of works in a non PhD explanation. You take a dollar and you give it to the bank, and they give you a toaster oven, okay? You make a savings account, put a dollar in it, and the bank is allowed to go and lend out $15, okay? So they print this money up, okay? They print all the rest of this money up, just print it, hit the print button. The bank goes out and lends that out, okay, to the public. Now, here's what happens in a short sale. And when you have a non-performing note, let's say it's a $100,000 loan, okay? So it goes in reverse, 15 to 1 reverse. Now that means they have to take $1.5 million off of their books. The banks have to take that off their books. They can't lend it out to the general public. They can't lend it on car loans, house loans, or anything else. So they don't like that. Okay. So they'd much rather take, say, 50,000 or 20, whatever for that loan, because now they can go out and lend out 750,000, right? And they don't get shut down by the FDIC. Okay. That's the motivation. That's some of what's going on with the banks. That's why you can get such good pricing on these because the banks are motivated, quote, sellers, in that term. They've got other reasons, just like sellers have reasons for selling at, what might be considered a price that's acceptable to them, but somebody else can do something to that house, bring value to it and sell it for a profit. They did value to it, and so they get that profit. The banks don't want to fix the houses up. They don't want to sell them. They don't want to paint them. They don't want to do whatever. And so they'll take a lower amount than that you can buy and make a profit. That's kind of basically, on the end of how that works with the bank side.
Those are some amazing insights, especially from the banking side. And you could tell you have tremendous amount of knowledge in this space, especially doing this specific thing for 15 years. But if you were to start over today with nothing, but knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? And I'm asking this because if our investors or listeners who want to break free from the traditional path and pursue real estate, that's a good way for them to learn how to start.
Well, I think for me, my success became was because of relationships. One, get out to your local real estate group and meet people and build relationships. Okay, you're going to need a realtor, an attorney, a plumber, an electrician, a landlord, a management. So relationships is the number one thing. You know, if you're starting over or you're just starting out now, get to your RIA groups and build relationships with people to be able to help you. The second thing that I did, now it's not that I would do that I would have done. It's what I did do. I spent money on education. Okay, there is no point in this industry for you to reinvent the wheel. Okay, you know, there are plenty of educational materials out there. Okay, now of course do your due diligence and stuff like that, but you know, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, okay, on how to do tax lien sales or probates or, you know, short sales. There's people that have done it before you, okay? And so, you know, pay for education. If you have the cash to do that, you know, then pay for education. It's going to jump you miles ahead of that profit curve of where you're going to be. So relationships and education, those are the two key things that you need.
Amazing. And if you could share just one piece of advice or a quote that's had the biggest impact on your success as an investor, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's tough because there's so many books and so many sayings and so many things out there. You know, this is a strange one. I'm going to say this. This is not going to fit in. It's not even going to be an answer that you would have even expected, but it came to my mind. And there's so many things that I could analyze and try and, you know, and send you one later on because I analyze it. But I'm going to say this one here, okay? This is going to sound terrible. The one the one with the gold makes the rules, okay? The one with the cash makes the rules, okay? So when you're successful in real estate and you're making money and making cash, you're the one that makes the rules. You know, you're the one that's buying the houses because you have the cash. You're the one that's paying the contractors because you can pay them to fix the house up. You're the one that, you know, makes the golden rules, you know. Cash is king. That's another phrase that said cash is king. Okay, always remember that. Okay, cash is king. And so you always want to be out there with that in mind.
Amazing. Love it. And, David, you talk about leaving a legacy and helping others do the same. What does that mean to you personally and for your career? And what
Well,
can
you
we
know,
expect from you in
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I have a goal to make 1,000 millionaires across this country. Okay, I've got millions. I've made millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. I don't know how many millions I would count out there, but I made lots of it. Okay, and I just did it by building relationships and paying for education. And that means anybody else out there can do the same thing. And so I want other people out there to be able to be financially free, to be able to quit their corporate job and be able to work. And you don't have to like sit on the beach. I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying that, you know, to have that choice of financial freedom to choose what you do, because you can hire out all these pieces of real estate. Okay. I mean, you know, shoot, you know, they can buy the leads from you, right? Okay. You know, you can hire everything out. You can hire a GC. You can hire, you can do these different things. You can borrow the money to do it. You don't need money in a short sale. That's another misconception. You don't need your own cash on a short sale. Okay. Now I don't have time to explain that right now and stuff like that. But basically, you know, for me is I want people to be able to be financially free and be able to, you know, do what they want with their family and with their career and their life.
Love it. David, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on Investor One-on-One. If our investors want to connect with you and learn more about you, how can they find you?
Well, I know that unfortunately I just raised more questions about short sales than I answered with it, right? Because I say very controversial things that are not known and stuff. And so what I do is I do have a 2 hour, and for your people, the ones listening on here, it's completely free, a 2 hour short sale workshop, okay? And so it's on Zoom, so wherever you're at. And if you text the word intro, INTRO, to my phone number at 636 685 2990. That will get you the Zoom link to get in on that 2 hour free workshop that I do each month. So I don't care if you're on YouTube a year from now, okay, or 3 months from now, you're on YouTube watching this or a podcast. That's why I said it out loud. If you're driving down the road, pull over and write the phone number down. You know, I do this every month. a 2 hour workshop. And for your listeners, if they text the word INTRO for intro, they can get on that Zoom session, whatever month it is, for free. Okay. And then I'll go over the current status of the banking system and what a short sale is, so you understand the mechanics of the short sale. It's a good introduction to it for investors.
David, you're
Now the other one though, if they don't like remember that or see that, here's the easy one. Go to my website, thedavidrandolph.com. So it's THE, because okay, look, davidrandolph.com was taken, and I was heartbroken. I was sad. It was terrible and stuff. But somebody said, "Wait a minute, aren't you the David Rand?" Yeah, yeah, go daddy, give me the davidrandolph.com. So you can go to my website, okay, and sign up there too. So if you don't know how to text or anything, then go to the website on the internet, thedavidrandolph.com, and you can get that free 2 hour workshop.
amazing. And we'll link everything below as well in case, the first two options, they missed that as well. And I truly recommend the workshop as well. And I feel like you guys could learn a lot from David. And to everyone watching, thanks again for tuning in and stay connected for more interviews with the nation's top investors. Thank you, David.
Thank you. I appreciate it.